Our guest today for today's episode of Auxano Bytes is Mr. Vipul Singh, co-founder of Aerav Unmanned Systems, that is AUS. An aerospace engineer himself, Vipul has always been fascinated with drones and flight dynamics. After working extensively within the UAV development at IIT Kanpur, Vipul's love for drones skyrocketed. A young and fierce entrepreneur, Vipul, along with his team, have made AUS the first leading commercial drone company to get a small category drone certified by the DGCA in India. Currently, as the Vice President and the founding member of Drones Federation of India, Vipul has been working closely with the industry experts, visionaries, and policymakers to build a sustainable and scalable UAV industry in India. It's a pleasure to have him with us today at Auxano Bytes. In our conversation with him, we will get an understanding on his view on how the drones industry is shaping up and how AUS is confident to put Indian drones across the global skies. Welcome, Vipul. Thank you so much today joining us for Auxano Bytes.
Thanks a lot, Sudha. Thanks a lot for the lovely introduction. I think you did it better than me.
So, Vipul, I want to start by congratulating you and the AUS team for recently raising funds with the Karnataka government, as it resonates with the confidence the government has in the growth potential of AUS. So how does that feel?
Feels good. I mean, we have been waiting for this time to come. I think we were too early in the market developing the solution, played a good role in terms of educating various stakeholders about the potential. And today we are at a stage where we are able to monetize that effort, which we put in educating and creating that awareness. So yeah, I mean, if that is rewarded by funding by investors, nothing better than that.
Great. So let's start from the beginning of the AUS journey. We began the journey in 2013. So how do you feel that, AUS has evolved over the period of time from where it was and where it is now?
Okay, so we changed our entire business model, to be very frank. When we started, we had a thought of building drones as a hardware and selling them as let's say, as a product. But over a period of time, when we started, let's say, creating awareness about the technology, because when we started, there was no, let's say, there was no idea about drones being used for commercial applications. Drones were only prevalent either in defense application or a version of, or a very stripped down version of drones, which were called as remote controlled models, were being used for only recreational purposes. So, and we were among, let's say, one or two organizations or companies, small companies in the world, which were looking at using drones for commercial applications. Okay. So we had our own struggle in educating the market, especially in India, that this technology can deliver, let's say, improve productivity for enterprises, as well as help government to solve some of the very old and large scale problems, which either cannot be solved with the conventional technologies because they are not accurate enough, or they cannot deliver the scale and the flexibility which the drone technology can deliver. So while we were doing this exercise to prove the benefit of this technology, we realized that most of the target users don't understand the potential of the data. Mm-hmm. They could realize the potential of the equipment which collects the data, but they could not see that the hidden value which is there in the data which the equipment is collecting. So most of the time we ended up spending more energy and effort in educating them that what more they can do than their conventional requirements when they have this kind of data with them. Okay, so with that came the understanding that we are not really monetizing our expertise in the optimized manner. So our expertise was not only building these drones, but to understand how well they can add value to these target sectors like mining, infrastructure, land records, irrigation, agriculture. So we changed our business model. Somewhere in 2017, we decided that we are no more going to be a drone company which will sell hardware, but will become a solution company for which drone is one tool to deliver the solution. And we'll put the entire stack together, which will include drone as a hardware. Again, hardware which delivers the scale and the accuracy in the data. And then manner and analyze to extract business intelligence. And the business intelligence which gives actionable insights to these enterprises. So the way we were seen as one of the tool providers for these enterprises changed. Complete solution provider, which can give out-of-box experience to most of these target enterprises. So with that, the speed of adoption increased, the impact which we delivered to these enterprises increased, and hence the way our team was structured more on the hardware side, more on product building also changed. Now we have more subject matter experts for each industry who basically who collect the information that what these enterprises need, transfer that information to our technology team, which develops the capability in the hardware as well as in the software stack which we have. So I would say that today we are in a position where we understand the problems of our customers and the solutions better than them. And hence we keep setting new benchmarks. Okay. So from people who are trying to prove the value of the technology, we have become people who are unlocking the potential of this technology across various sectors. And hence we are able to tap into the scale, which is right now being, I would say, experienced by this particular sector and enterprises who are using this technology. So a lot of things changed. The whole mindset around how we want to build this business changed. And with that, now we have also got the clarity that how a unicorn can be created from a drone sector. What solutions will emerge in the future? Because when we started, we listed down some 10, 15 set of use cases which we felt our device or the drone would solve. And today we are seeing all of these use cases happening. And why? Because we did not limit ourselves to only building product. If we would have limited ourselves to only building product, the rest of the stack would have been left to someone else to solve. And that would have impacted the speed at which the technology gets adopted. So we could accelerate the adoption of technology in this country by basically getting the whole stack together. So that mindset itself is driving our team right now, that where we get into the intrinsic requirements of each of these industries, understand whether they have a large market potential, and then develop the product from scratch in order to meet the requirements, rather than building a product and then trying to sell it into the industries where it can fit or it may fit. So the whole way of engineering itself changed.
So you talked about potential, tapping into potential, and I feel that to be able to do that, you require a good talent within the organization. So could you throw some light on how you feel the team has evolved internally, and how do you foresee it growing further in size as AUS is growing in size?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so this is a sector where you don't get ready-made talent. Okay, this is an emerging sector, and I think very few people are doing the things the way we are doing it. So it will be naive to really expect that someone ready-made will be there and we can hire a talent and start doing the things. So I think what we have learned and understood and created as a dynamics is that we value people based on their aptitude, attitude, and commitment. Once they have these three things, then we build that dynamics and the characteristics in a personality which is required to understand what is required as a good solution. So most of our talent is a talent which we nurtured within our organization. These are people who came with a good amount of passion, very good attitude, and fantastic aptitude. They were very good engineers, but may not be the engineers who are already doing it. Okay, we presented them the right set of goals, the direction, and connected them with the customers, that what exactly they are looking for, what are the problems which we need to solve. And if you put the people with right motivation and, let's say, skill set to understand what's the problem, what is the nature of the problem, and what kind of solution is required. I mean, I have seen that we have enough talent in India that they figure out how to develop the solution. So we never get into getting a set of people who know how to develop a solution. We get the people who know how to understand what solution is required. Okay, so that's how we have structured our entire team. People who have the required skill set, the aptitude, and that commitment towards the customer to understand their problem and then translate that into the right solution architecture and deliver it.
And how do you foresee going forward? What kind of leadership roles that you're trying to build internally within AUS?
We have different leadership I would say roles within AUS. The team is expanding, and when generally a team is expanding and you are in a growth phase, generally you lack the managerial and leadership personalities, and hence either you have to nurture those roles within the people in the organization, or you have to get people from outside the organization to bridge those gaps. So I mean, see, we are let's say scaling up with these enterprises, so we will be needing the engineers to graduate and become account managers who can foster healthy relationship with the customers. Okay, there are people who are required to unlock more potential of the market by let's say demonstrating newer solutions to target markets. So either it could be people within the organization or outside the organization who understand the potential of the technology, but really good at let's say fostering relationship with people in the enterprise, or I say B2B or B2G sector, because most of the work which we do is either B2B or B2G. And then engineering leadership, because we are creating more products. So from implementer to project manager is the journey which most of the people are taking. So eventually we will be also hiring a lot of people who have let's say, experience of running large scale engineering programs. How do you get from a prototype to a final product? And as we are also scaling up our hardware production, which is again an element into our stock and in the entire solution stack, we are also looking at people who have basically delivered large scale production lines when it comes to complex electromechanical products. Okay. Simultaneously, because we are expanding our business and we are having a roadmap to expand our business presence outside India, we are also looking for people who are experienced in taking Indian businesses and tech-heavy businesses to foreign, I would say, geographies. So that's another role which is going to emerge in AUS, within AUS. One more set of roles will be towards the administration. When the organization becomes big, you need to really bring in the processes and right technology interventions. There is one technology which is what we are creating, but to facilitate the high-speed growth and efficiency, you need to get a lot of technology intervention. Again, for by using existing technologies, platforms, and processes. So again, we will be needing people who understand that what it takes to take a journey from 1 to N. So we have been able to successfully do 0 to 1 with these set of people. Now it's required that we go from 1 to N, and hence we need people who know how to really build the processes within the organization, systems within the organization, so that when we are scaling up, we don't become inefficient and we don't make mistakes.
I think that's
and I think that's what is needed for an organization like us, that when we scale up, we don't lose the USP which we have, which is the precision and accuracy.
I think that's a pretty interesting insight for our listeners who are, young entrepreneurs who are still very unsure of how to grow, but not lose the USP, like you said, and also continue to be efficient as they're growing. So moving on, let's talk about some recent announcements. So the Aviation Ministry of India announced the drones rules in 2021 in August, which is being viewed to bring on transformational change in the drones industry. So how do you feel that AUS views this policy being a game changer for its growth potential?
We see this policy as a complete paradigm shift in the industry, right? Okay. A policy which will actually make India the drone hub of the world. It will not only open up the market potential within India, but it will also enable a lot of entrepreneurship, and it will attract a lot of foreign players to choose India as their R&D and manufacturing hub both. Okay. Now, if you look at the earlier policies and standards which were existing for this particular sector, they were not properly structured when it comes to realizing or tapping into the highest potential of the technology to solve the problems of the present and also create a platform for creation of solutions for future. So this particular policy has a very balanced approach when it comes to tapping into the maximum potential in the present, as well as creating the roadmap for the future. So just to give you an example, earlier there were a couple of licenses and permissions required for someone to develop drones and prototypes or conduct R&D around drones, because they had more threat perception than than the potential realization, right? The weight of threat perception was heavy compared to the weight of potential which this technology can deliver for the large masses. Okay. So what happened in the past is that the drone technology could deliver really good solutions for large masses. Projects like Swamitva scheme, where drones are being used to map all the 6.6 lakh villages in the country and going to affect at least 1 billion people and their next 5 generation, gave that level of understanding to the regulators that this technology has more potential than the threat perception. Okay, hence they remove the entire barrier which is required for someone to either create a solution or scale the business. Okay, so and even envisage the solutions of the future. Okay, so any foreign enterprise or Indian enterprise can choose now India as the location to conduct their R&D, run their tests, develop their prototype. And now, in fact, today there is another update which has happened, that Cabinet has passed a bill which approves PLI scheme for drone sector. So we'll now have performance linked incentives for drone sector as well. So that will further boost the indigenization of all the manufacturing which is happening, because so far most of the components and subcomponents have been coming from, let's say, foreign territories. because we never reached that scale. We never had that ecosystem wherein we can develop globally competitive set of components. Because PLI scheme has come in, a lot of foreign entities will come in, as well as the Indian industries will pick up this sector in order to tap into the growth potential which is emerging now. While on the other hand, the policy also enables a very good approach of devising new standards through experimentation. Generally, in India, that has not been the trend into deep technology. They will read the policies of other nations and they try to really stitch things together from different pieces by taking bits and pieces from different geographies. And most of the time, these policies don't fit into the demography of India, because as a country we have a different requirement. The kind of population we are and the kind of complexities we deal with, our requirements are different. You cannot pick up a solution from a Western society and try to put it as it is into the Indian society. So what government has understood that it just adds complexity. So what they are doing is, through this policy, they are also enabling that you go run experiments, gather insights, develop an approach and a roadmap that what will work for India. And then using all that information, a new set of standards will be put together for scalable deployment of the technology in future. So let it be uses of drones for logistics application, uses of drones for aerial mobility, where anyone like us can call a drone taxi on the rooftop and then travel and cut through the chase of traffic and reach maybe 10 kilometers within 10 minutes. All those use cases are being envisaged and a roadmap is being created that how do we open up those sectors eventually over next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? And it's being welcomed open-heartedly that you can run experiments within the Indian territory and develop the ecosystem which is required to enable such use cases. So all in all, what I would like to say about the policy is that it enables R&D, it enables highest utilization of drones in the current, and also enables opening up the future potential use cases when it comes to drone, more complex and more integrated use cases, more population integrated use cases, which were earlier considered as only a sci-fi dream, right? So all those things are going to happen now because the policy has laid down the roadmap that how one can do it. And if we go into the specifics, I would say that earlier there were almost 24 to 25 different permissions and licenses required if you want to become a, let's say, a developer, service provider, and ultimately also the manufacturer of drones, which generally companies like us are doing all three of it. Now those number of licenses have been reduced to only 6. So there is 5 times reduction in the effort which one entrepreneur will be putting, running behind various regulatory bodies and government authorities. And that time and energy will be spent around scaling up the solution and developing better and newer solutions for the future potential. So yeah, and that's what the current policy is. And I think from my understanding of how other policies in the world exist, I would rank it among the top 3 kind of drone policies which we have developed for India. And that's why I'm very bullish about this fact that India will become the drone hub of the world and will unlock at least $3 to $5 billion worth of business over just next 3 years when it comes to just directly delivered through drones.
But I am sure that AUS works in close collaboration with the government of India, but it has not been an easy ship to sail initially. So what was the process of getting them on board and having them, sit down and listen to the solution that you're providing and how that is going to transform the industry in future? So how did that process happen?
It was really tricky and tough. We spent a lot of time because we understood the only thing which is going to, let's say, saturate the potential of the market will be the outlook of the government towards this technology. Right. Not only this, you pick up any other sector where India is lagging in spite of having all the required talent pool is just because of the government outlook and the delay in the outlook. They have been generally delayed in understanding the potential. So we learned from that. We could see that we could not tap into the aviation industry. Being such a big country, we still buy our aircrafts from smaller countries like Brazil. And we buy our phones from smaller countries like, I would say less potential countries today. Okay. Why we couldn't do it? Because we couldn't bring the right ecosystem at the right time. It's all about timing. So we could understand much earlier in the stage back in 2013-14 that unless we go and educate these guys who really don't know anything about this technology, they will put up something which will not make sense for the industry and will fight for another 5-6 years to just make them understand that where they are going wrong. So as a company, I mean, as an individual and as a company, how we started our journey, I mean, it was a very simple, straightforward approach, which no one would have imagined. We started just sending RTIs to these government organizations. Okay, RTI is not asking some information, but asking very pinpointed questions about how they are envisaging this technology, what kind of ecosystem they are willing to foster. Do they know that this is the potential of the market? Do they understand the threats and the potential and how they are going to validate that? Okay, do they have a program in place wherein when this technology becomes a mainstream technology, they will have an ecosystem to integrate that with the current existing infrastructure, right? So they never had that. The answer will be always no, or some let's say entangled answer where will you not be able to conclude what they want to say. So with that, we could imprint ourselves as people who are, let's say, thinkers, right? When you ask the right questions, they know that yes, they are thinking about this. So a couple of events happened in the past where the people used drones for some malicious activities. And these regulators became extremely concerned that if people start doing this malicious activity at large scale, something will go wrong. Okay. And bizarrely wrong. So we will not be able to take, we don't want to take the liability. Hence, let's go and ban the whole thing. Okay. So we could collect a few like-minded people from the industry and also on the side of the government that this is an emerging technology. And if you really, I would say, limit it today by stringent regulations, you're going to lose the potential which this country can realize, and also the lead which this country can take when it comes to having a independency in developing its own indigenous solutions, right? And we will again end up importing or buying it from other countries, which we have been doing for many other sectors, right? So there were a lot of people in the government. I would not say that it is all our effort. There were a lot of people in the government who could sync with our thought process. Okay. And then we started demonstrating them the potential. I mean, there were not only us, there were a couple of other, let's say, industry players also who started demonstrating the use cases to them that, okay, see, this is how this technology can solve this problem. And people who were interested more towards solving those problems in the government started advocating in the favor of the technology. Okay, and then eventually, over the last couple of years, what happened is that it reached to the highest level in the leadership. Okay, and the highest level of leadership could see that conviction in the young entrepreneurs that they believe that this technology will solve the problem. Let's give them a chance. Okay, and they gave all of us a chance that okay, you please deploy as you want and solve the problem. And they could see that the problems were solved. So they understood that if we don't unleash the potential, we'll lose the opportunity of becoming self-reliant, right? So that's where all the thought process around changing the regulatory ecosystem got, I would say, processed within the leadership. And once the leadership decided they want to do it, they just asked the regulators that you need to deliver to this kind of vision, right? And when it comes to really delivering that vision, then it's not about just writing a statement that there is a vision and hence you need to deliver. There has to be a very systematic approach around building the process, roadmap, and policy. Right. So they needed subject matter experts to do that. Okay, people who understand the technology, how it works, how it can be made sure that while it scales, it is not misused, right? So their concerns are also answered while the potential to have a large scale impact can be also delivered. So ultimately, people who are the first movers in the industry, who develop the technology, who understand the potential and how it can be scaled, were invited to add their value into the thought process. And hence, we also played our role into the formulation of the policy with the other industry players and industry bodies. In fact, we created an industry body dedicatedly for that. Somewhere in 2016, we felt that the existing industry bodies don't have the leadership which understand this tech. And hence, because of that understanding problem, the requirements will not be conveyed to the level of precision we want. Okay. Right. So we came up with the idea that even though we are small, we should not shy away from having our own industry body. And we created the Drone Federation of India, wherein 3-4 companies came together and they sat over a cup of coffee and decided that let's have our own federation. And the federation will work closely with the government. And today, we are the most prominent body when it comes to devising any policy standards or giving any recommendations to the government at the topmost level around drones. So that's how over a period everything emerged. So all in all, I would say it's about having that clarity about the strategy, that unless you start now and you put your steps in a very, very calculated manner, you won't achieve that status which is required to achieve scale and the precision which is required. So it's both together has to work. I mean, you need to get scale, but with precision, right? So I would say that we could envisage everything. We could imagine what is required in order to reach there, and what are the various pitfalls which will come on the way, and why we need to do something like focusing our energies on creating an industry body rather than building products in order to achieve the final goal. Otherwise, we will build product, but the ecosystem will not allow it to flourish, right? So I think we still carry that characteristics. We very well know that what's going to be the next future of drones in the next 2-3 years. What will be the what will emerge over the next 2-3 years? What will be the pitfalls? And hence, to make sure that the pitfalls don't happen, what needs to be done today? What direction do we need to set? And how we did that? We simply studied how other countries became the leaders into certain technologies by staying ahead of everyone else in creating the ecosystem. How Germans led the revolution in the automobile, how Americans led the revolution in aviation, how Koreans led the revolution in mobile technology and LED screen, right? And how Chinese became from manufacturer to innovation hub and created some of the best products, now creating some of the best products in the world, right? So we studied the model, what worked for them, and then kind of derived the outcomes and learnings from there and made our own story. It's not like we didn't make any mistake. We made mistakes, but far lesser mistake than we would have made by cribbing over that government is not allowing this sector to go, right? So at least we are not at a side of the industry where we are only cribbing and expecting something from government. We are working closely with them. So that also allows us to course correct them, because you can't expect a bureaucrat who doesn't have a technology background to understand all the nuances, right? They also need support. Sometimes they have the right motivation, but let's say very limited information and understanding of the technology. So we're just making sure that people with the right motivation are provided with the right information and the details so that they don't make mistakes when they are making or creating policies which will drive the future of the sector. That's what I mean. It sounds simple, but it's not.
I think a very interesting takeaway from this for our young entrepreneurs would be that a visionary leadership involves not just wanting to change the product, but actually have an understanding to change the system. And that's how you become like a catalyst for change.
Exactly. So one thing I would say, I mean, one of the gurus whom I follow gave one simple statement, right? You take the responsibility for everything which you feel is going wrong in the world.
Yeah.
You just feel that you are responsible. Play your role in solving that problem, whatever level you are. If you feel bad about garbage, that at least control that you are not contributing to that problem if you can't solve it at a large scale. So I think that realization happened at a very early stage, is that we have to feel responsible for what can go wrong and make sure that we play our role to correct it. Every person have a different capacity. So based on our capacity and positioning, we played our role. Maybe someone else plays a role in a different capacity. But unless you have that realization that every problem around you, you are responsible, it's not possible to solve it.
I think we're somewhere going on the tangent of bringing in that very patriotic feeling between, within our entrepreneurs, and we're having this conversation about
important.
Yeah,
it's very important.
Yeah.
It's very important. It's a shortcut which could have made that we are not feeling that this country is not going to ever deliver the ecosystem. Hence, we will go and work somewhere else,
right,
and build a business in another ecosystem. It's very simple thing to do, right? But then what you are really doing as an entrepreneur. So we are ardent nationalists. Okay, we feel that we should build the national capability. We have all the talent and resources required to do that. So while we are building, let's say, business capacity, it's also important that we contribute towards building national capacity. And anyways, if you're leading that objective, you'll always get the maximum benefit in your business, because that position also allows you to see what's going to happen next. So if you get a superpower of seeing what will be the future, you can always prepare your business better than anyone else.
True.
So that's what we are in. I mean, that's the position we enjoy.
So, okay, Vipul, let's move towards drones categorization. So typically drones can be segmented into 5 categories based on weight. So which categories AUS, catering to currently, and why do you feel that this specific category is of critical importance?
So again, based on the weight class, government has listed down various weight categories. One is nano, which is drones up to 250 grams or 500 grams weight. And then there is another category above it, which is micro class, which is 500 grams to 2 kgs. And then the class next to is 2 kgs to 25 kgs, a little wide band which is available. And then 25 kgs to 150 kgs, and then 150 to 500 kgs. Okay. Now, when we say 150 to 500 kgs, these are pretty large drones, which we'll see in logistics or aerial mobility segment. However, most of the industrial applications which are happening today fall within that 2 to 25 kg. And that's where we are also building our product line. Okay. So when I say product line, our product also comprises of data analytics and the business intelligence bundle, which we build around the drone data set. But the hardware is within that range. Why we are doing it? Because if someone sits down and tries to do the calculations and finds out that, okay, if you want to lift a particular sensor or reasonable sensor to solve some of the largest problems and achieve a certain performance and reliability, ultimately the entire weight of the product will fall within that band, 2 to 25 kgs. And it's a wide band. So a use case like mining and another large scale use case like agriculture, which is a completely different segment, B2C, mining would be B2B, land records would be B2B. All of these segments fall within that 2 to 25 kg.
Okay.
So if you are putting your engineering team and your product development strategy and I would say mindset within a particular weight class, it helps you diversify yourself for different use cases, a wider variety of use cases. Okay. And every engineering you do for a particular, let's say, drone will be also available to enhance the capability of another product which you might be making for another segment or sector, right? And as the class changes, the complexity of the engineering as well as the certification changes. Within a particular class, every process remains same. So it just helps you run a lean engineering team, I would say. So based on the performance, the reliability of the drone, the performance of the drone, and the kind of data which is to be collected across different segments, we figured out that this small category is the category where most of the reasonable products will fall in. I mean, that is the category within which most of the products will fall, who will have the right combination of scalability, reliability, performance, and accuracy of the data. That is the reason we are focused more about that. However, if you change your target market and you want to go to recreational photography market, one may conclude that 500 grams to 2 kg is a better category to fall within, right? But that's not the target market for us. So the choice of category is based on the target market and their expectations.
And any advantage that AUS has built within this category for itself?
For sure. I mean, there were certain initiatives which we took. For example, we were the first one to get certified by the Director General of Civil Aviation within that category. So when you cross the 2 kg category, there are additional requirements in certification when it comes to engineering reliability of your product, the factor of safeties which you need to build, the airworthiness which you need to build. All in all, in short, the drone should not fall on someone's head when you are flying it 100 times or multiple times in a day or hundreds of times in a month, right? So your product needs to be engineered in such a way. Suddenly, if the wind speed in weather changes, the drone should not fail, right? So all those capabilities are capabilities which further convert into how you engineer your product.
Right.
So I think even though these standards were not existing, because these are very fundamental requirements of making a scalable business, okay, or scalable product, we have engineered all of it anyways, okay. And we build a very connected product. How do you do predictive analytics in order to avoid the downtime of a product and do more productive maintenance? How do you connect your product real time with the cloud so that you can monitor where which hardware is operating, under what conditions, is it being used or misused, right? And hence those level of variables, when you capture those level of variables, it allows you to deploy the solution at, let's say, 1,000 times the scale without a glitch.
Right.
So when we designed our solution, we envisaged and we made sure that if all of a sudden the potential gets unlocked and we have to do 1000x scale, our hardware design capability should not fail the business, right? It should be able to deliver to the new scaled expectations. So as a company, we also focus on a very specific set of sectors. The sectors which we focus with largely is around remote sensing, where we collect three-dimensional data of a particular area, and then we run our analytics on that based on the sector which we are targeting. The analytics for mining and analytics for, let's say, road infrastructure would be completely different from each other, right? But the fundamental data layer will be same. So what we focus upon is the precision and the accuracy part of it. Okay. While performance and reliability is anyways a fundamental requirement. So our drones have got those specific set of sensors and algorithms which are required to deliver those precisions and accuracy. And I think I would not shy away from saying that we were the first one to do that in the market. And we did it pretty much independently and with a set of proprietary technologies. We did not go and shop for some OEM solutions and integrate it with our hardware. We built those capabilities in-house. So hence we have a very good process, cost, and scalability control. Right? When you're dependent on foreign OEMs, you are you're limited by the scalability which they offer. You're limited by the flexibility which they offer when it comes to diving deeper into the engineering nuances, right? So we have that flexibility, and because of that flexibility, we have been able to prove that our products are far more scalable and robust than any other solution existing in the market, either coming from a foreign player or coming from a domestic player who has just started developing a product and not yet understood what are the various intrinsic requirements of a sector, right? So I would say those are some defining factors about our hardware, while there are a lot of other defining factors about how we do the analytics on the data.
So since you brought about we're talking about the data analytics. So we have a proprietary software solution that provide to our users and end consumers. So how do you use that as a differentiator with your competitors in the market?
So we don't, I mean, I don't see that anyone is doing end-to-end solutions in the country right now. Either there are service providers who are buying off-the-shelf drones and using off-the-shelf software platforms to cater to a particular type of use cases, or there are users who are, or there are players who are developing drone as a hardware. And these are the companies who have been active into completely different sector, and now they are diversifying themselves into commercial segment and trying to understand what are the requirements and building those capacities.
Right.
So one of the differences is that the level of details we have understood about the market and how we have built those capabilities into our product. One. Second thing is that because we were too early in the market, we could develop that very strong integrated relationship with our customer to understand what more value add can be extracted from the same data and what kind of problems it can solve for them. So if you look at the value add which we provide, if our competitors are right now providing a ROI of, let's say, 200 to 300 times, we are standing at an ROI of about 1,000 plus times. Okay, so there is a huge gap in that. Plus, we are always ahead of setting the new set of value adds which the industry can realize. So we go from a very first principle approach. We first understand what is the business, what way they are currently solving the problems of that business, which problems can we replace from the drones immediately, and which problems we can replace subsequently. Okay. And the hidden value, or I would say the variables which we have, let's say we have a certain set of variables in our data. What variables can be used to solve which problem? And we start devising the model around those variables for solving each of these problems. Okay. So, what happens is that we create the solution. We don't copy the solution like many of them. Okay. So what is happening right now is that AUS goes, understands the problem, figures out the solution, delivers the solution which is scalable and replicable, and also solves the problem at much better efficiency than their existing methods. And everyone else tries to understand what we have done and some kind of tries to replicate the effort. So at any point of time, the offerings which we provide to our solution is to our users is far more impactful than the closest competitor. Because we are always offering 5 extra value adds than what people understand in the market. Okay. So that ability to understand what is needed and convert that into a solution, scalable solution, is what is our USP when it comes to the data analytics part. And we have a very strong team of subject matter experts. So we do things quite differently. We don't end up learning things which we don't understand. We bring in people who already are from that industry and tell them that you tell us your imagination. What problems you want this technology to solve for you? And many times you have to just build to meet the customer imagination.
Mhm.
You know, if someone asked you 10 years back that how would you like to take your taxi, and you would say, yeah, if I can just press a button and the taxi is on my doorstep,
Mhm.
and listening to that imagination, an entrepreneur goes and builds a solution around it, that
Right.
becomes Uber, right?
Mhm.
Right. So it's all about we connect with our customer. We try to understand what they are needing, and we ask them to just lay down all their imagination together, and then we filter out what's hypothetical and what's practical from the engineering point of view, and we start immediately working on it. And
Mhm.
that's why we always stay ahead of everyone else, because I feel right now when you sit down to solve those problems, one will figure out that it cannot be solved only by working on a software piece
Mhm.
or only on the hardware piece. One needs to have a seamless integration of both.
Right.
And that is exactly why we built the complete stack in-house. We didn't
Mhm.
go for a very simple approach that we buy the drone from someone else or we buy the software from someone else. We make only drones or we only do services, which is quite easy to do compared to building the entire solution and engineering it in-house. So it's like, I would say, differentiation between Apple versus Microsoft.
Mhm.
Right? If you want to deliver a certain experience to your customer, you need to engineer yourself. You cannot be dependent on some third party to do that,
Mhm.
right? So that's what is our USP. I think we have been able to engineer all those intrinsic expectations of our customer into a single bundle.
Mhm. So while we're talking about converting, raw sets of data into actionable insights, but the idea is that within the drone industry, the data we're collecting is highly sensitive in nature, which is constantly under the purview of the government policies and including the location and operations of the drones itself. So how
Correct.
does a company which has access to such critical information ensure to function within the legal boundaries?
Right. So as we speak, even the definition of legal boundaries is changing. Okay.
Mhm.
Now there are various levels at which data is collected. Right. There is micro level where I can really I can intrude into your privacy and confidentiality, and there are macro level insights which will solve a larger scale problem from an economy and industry perspective, government perspective. Okay.
Right.
So we very clearly segregate our data from that perspective. So there is no utilization of data from one customer to give any insight to the other customer. It's
Mhm.
the engine which deals, there is always data being transacted between two players, which is the
Mhm.
company and the user, which is our customer. And
Mhm.
the only thing for which we make use of the data is to develop better capabilities for our solution.
Mhm.
Learn from what customer needs and develop a solution from that, not to sell data to an outsider.
Mhm.
Okay, especially the micro level data, which is, let's say, private and confidential in nature. A macro level data, now, as I was telling, that the legal boundaries are changing, right?
Right.
So what government of India has also done is that understanding that the value and the impact which such technologies can deliver to the society as a whole can be unlocked only when we collect data at a certain scale.
Mhm.
Now, if you look at the way Google adds value to our life in terms of recommendations, navigation, and so many things, it
Right.
wouldn't have been possible if they were not collecting data at that large scale,
Mhm.
right? You cannot predict the traffic. You cannot predict or collect reviews about your favorite restaurant if you're not collecting data at a larger scale. So sometimes creating a solution requires data collecting at larger scale. However, one needs to define a boundary where you are intruding into someone's privacy and where you are collecting only trends to develop a newer solution or a better solution. That's what we are doing. While on the other side, government understands that the threat which is there is the weight of threat is lesser than the weight of the large scale solution which can emerge from these technologies.
Mhm.
So what they have done is they have defined certain boundaries in terms of where you can keep this data, how you can use that data, and as an entity who is allowed to use that data.
Mhm.
So in our case, if you are collecting data beyond a certain level of details, the Indian entities are allowed to keep that data
Mhm.
and make use of that data for creating solutions,
Mhm.
not directly sell data about someone's privacy and confidentiality.
Mhm.
Okay. And the data has to stay within the national boundaries,
Mhm.
within the servers and cloud servers which are physically present within Indian boundaries. And foreign entities are not allowed to do that.
Mhm.
So we basically follow all those compliances and regulations when we are dealing with anyone's data. And again, ultimate control of the data is provided to the enterprises. They can always decide who can access their data, how they can access their data, and even kind of lock and unlock the data based on their own requirements. But we take the leverage only to understand their requirement and use that data to train our own models, right? So that we can deliver better solutions to them. Never it happens that we collect data for an enterprise, learn something about their business and sell that information to someone else. That's the policy which we have made around. And I think that's a confidentiality which we sign by contract also with all of our enterprises or our customers. Going forward, that will be the case. However, this is an emerging tech. It's not completely proof against malicious, let's say, breach of data, any hack. Hackers are also evolving. The data protection technologies and solutions are also evolving as these technologies of hack are also evolving. So eventually, more and more such encryption layers or cybersecurity norms will be put on drone data also. We also kind of have made some provisions in our platform and in our product to ensure highest amount of secrecy or confidentiality of such kind of data sets. But I won't say that it is foolproof. Nothing is foolproof. Everything can be hacked because even hackers are depending on technology and they are evolving faster than the protection layers. Right? So it's an evolutionary process, I would say. A certain level of threats are protected, a certain level of threats, maybe we are not in a position to even benchmark that what level of threat we can foresee in near future.
So since you talked about evolving technologies, so within the domain of technology, I feel that artificial intelligence and machine learning is like the most critical assets. It has become now from moving from being a differentiator to now it has become a necessity, I'd say. So how do you foresee that AI and ML can impact the technology-driven solutions within the drones industry?
A huge play for AI and ML, Swada, because these are generally large data sets. There are n number of variables one need to really read and understand. Okay, and as the scale is increasing, it's not possible to deliver these solutions through, let's say, conventional manual processes and analytics methodologies. At some point of time, the computation, I would say, capability and capacity has to take over the human capability and capacity. Machines will have to take over, and hence machine to work, you'll have to create software models, and software models need to be trained. So definitely machine learning will come into picture. Right now, let's say the expectation people have from the technology is very surface level in terms of the level of details they're expecting. As the technology gets integrated more and more with their business, they will also understand the potential of the data and the technology, and they will expect they start demanding more value adds. And as you start demanding more value adds, your level of details which you extract, the precision at which you read the information also changes, right? And that's where machine comes into picture. AI and ML are only tools. I mean, whether you write a hard-coded software algorithm which does the job, or you need machine learning to take over, or artificial intelligence to take over, it depends on what segment you're targeting, what solution you're trying to build, what is the nature of the data, how chaotic it is it possible to really structure it without the uses of AI or not, how dynamically it is changing with geography and time, right? And if more and more variable come into picture and these variables keep changing, then only you need to bring in machine learning and AI like technologies. But in case of drones, they are going to play a very vital role. I mean, we are talking about drones which will be operating within the civil airspace, right? And drones which will be doing logistics. So these drones will also have to have intelligence in order to read the environment around them and make sure that while they are operating, they do not create any catastrophe or any do not lead to any kind of accident, right? So all the calls cannot be taken by the human personality, because these drones are going to be autonomous. So when you talk about autonomous, they need to have the capability to collect data and understand the data to take decision. So whenever there is a decision to be taken, naturally the artificial intelligence will come into picture, right? Because the environment around them will not be constant. It will keep changing depending on whose house they are going to deliver the next pizza. Okay, whether it is Chandni Chowk or it is Gurgaon, where all the blocks are well defined, or Chandni Chowk where you don't know which house is where, right? So they need to really dynamically adapt to the environment around them. On the other side, I think blockchain also is going to have a very high impact on the drone technology, because Now there are use cases like what we are doing where there's a lot of exchange of data happening.
Right.
You wouldn't like someone to, let's say, encroach into the data pipeline and steal the data, right? So blockchain is one way to solve that problem. And government also understands that. And as we speak, there are frameworks being developed that how do we protect such data sets by integrating it with the blockchain, right? And putting it into a centralized manner, not in a disintegrated manner, because when you put the data in a centralized manner, it becomes traceable. When the data is decentralized, it becomes very difficult to trace it. Right? So those traceability factors will come from the blockchain. So that's the next level of problem statement which the industry will solve. Right now, the industry has a problem to solve that. How do you tap the scale?
Right.
How do you engineer your product and solution so that it can go from, let's say, 10x to 1000x? Right? And then the problem will come that, okay, you're collecting data at 1000x, so much of data is coming. How do you structure it, store it, and protect it?
Right.
So people are thinking in those directions. There are some people who are ahead in terms of devising those strategies, and some people who will make it because it will become a necessity.
Right. So I think we've talked about AUS products, offering solutions. Let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. And I feel that as an entrepreneur who has seen his vision through even the darkest times of, difficulties and complexities, what advice would you give to startups who are aiming to grow in constantly evolving industries? How does one continue to stay relevant?
It's a difficult question to answer. I mean, I would say one is the persistence. You need to be really having that characteristic if you really want to become an entrepreneur. Second is the belief in the solution. We had a very strong belief that this particular technology is going to solve the problems of masses. Okay. And we sketched out the roadmap that how it is going to do it, what are the various problems which it will face, and how to solve each of the problems. Okay. So I would say as an entrepreneur, we could have been smarter to not really focus our energies to solving external problems, solving only internal problems. That is one way of looking at the world. But if you consider your world beyond yourself and look at a larger world, which is your country, your people around you, and people who are suffering in spite of having so much of talent in India, the perspective changes, right? Then your perception and belief is not limited to only your personal goals of making a unicorn, but also the impact which you want to deliver to the society, right? So that is one thing which I would suggest the entrepreneurs to look at. The definition of success is changing. Okay. Today, when you are sitting in a growing economy, the definition of success would be the next funding round. Okay. The definition of success would be that how do I become another unicorn, right? But down the line, when there will be no water in your society's tank, then success would be to get a glass of water.
True.
Right? So somewhere entrepreneurs also need to think about that sustainable future and make technologies which will deliver that sustainable future. Something is that is something which we understood very early, that drone technology is one which will solve some of these very, very intrinsic problems. And as we speak, we are working on some of these problems in a very large way, solving problems of irrigation, forest conservation, climate change, urban sustainability, right? The issues which we face when the weather plays its own, let's say, role on our life, right? How do you solve these problems using the technology? So somewhere there has to be a balance between economic success and sustainability. I will say the success from the sustainability point of view. So when you start looking at world from that perspective, right? I mean, you naturally start putting effort, because then you are not very short-sighted in terms of your goals and not materialistic only with your goals. There is a certain non-materialistic goal also attached to your overall thing. It is important to get your next funding round in your journey. It is very important to also become a unicorn, because ultimately everyone is betting on you because they want to make returns and you also want to become successful. But is it the only definition of success is what we need to really question right now. Okay. For me, I think if I am able to spend a peaceful time around, if I have money, we become a unicorn, we become the best drone company in the world or the leading one in the country, that is satisfactory. But what if I'm not able to walk on the road peacefully and the forest around me is not surviving, and the city in which I live is not properly planned, and I waste 2-3 hours daily in commuting in traffic, or when it rains I get stuck because water is locked everywhere. Okay, will I really count myself successful? What will all the collection of money and luxury impact? I mean, what will be the impact of all of it? Ultimately, I'm going to get stuck in the same street, which is waterlogged, right?
Right.
So when you start seeing things from that perspective, then every problem becomes your problem, right? Even a regulatory problem becomes your problem. Ecosystem problem becomes your problem, and when things become your own, you start solving them, right? I think that's the mindset which we have carried so far, and I hope that we will carry the same mindset going forward. Sometimes it is dangerous to carry that mindset because it also kind of affects your understanding of time, right? You start looking everything from a long-term perspective. I would say then because these problems don't get solved within a year or two.
True.
They take at least half a decade or a decade to solve, right? Water problem, forest problem, climate change cannot be solved. You have to change your practices from day one, and then after 10 years, you'll realize how your policy and technology change has impacted into the final outcome. Then what happens? You miss your short-term goals sometimes because you're more focused on that long-term problem. So that is one thing which we have learned in the last couple of years, that while it is important to solve tough long-term problems, it is important to keep a track of your short-term goals. And hence, that's where you need to have momentum, sufficient momentum to achieve short-term as well as the long-term goals. Otherwise, sometimes the market dynamics change, and while you have your focus on the long-term goals, the short-term itself will fail you.
Thank you so much, Vipul. I think this was a pretty insightful and interesting conversation. We've touched upon every aspect that an entrepreneur or a young startup would want to kind of get an information on. So thank you so much for taking our time with us and spending your evening with us. And we wish the AUS team all the best. And we hope that you reach sky-high success and become the next unicorn of our country.
Thanks a lot, Sudha, for having me over. I feel that the viewers take away good things from our conversation, and look forward to more such podcasts and sharing insights with you all.
Thank you so much, Vipul. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudha.